Hello everyone, this is General Hand Grenade. Welcome to my war room in Prince George, British Columbia. In this video, I'm going to take a look at some of the rules that are coming up in version 3 of the game Global War 1936 to 1945. In the last couple of weeks, we've done some play testing down in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then I've showed you the new map and some of the new units that are going to be in the game, as well as some of the new units that Doug at Historical Wargaming is going to be putting out. So this video, I'm just going to show you some of the rule changes. Not all of them, just a few of them. Just a little teaser for you. But bear in mind when I do these, the rule book has not been written yet. So any of these rules are subject to change. They could be exactly as I tell you in here, or they could be just slightly different. But these are the ones that are different than, that are written down in the new working rule book than they were in the old rule book. So let's start off with blitzing here. Blitzing is going to be slightly different. Now in the past, like here, let's just take a look at what we're looking at here. There's a German territory here with a bunch of stuff in it, and there's a couple of heavy tanks back here. Now we'd like to take them both out. We'd especially like to take these heavy tanks out. Heavy tanks are tough though, and all I got back here is just two dudes and an artillery. So we can bring those in there against that. What we're hoping though is that we'll be able to take this out in the first 2 rounds of combat, and then be able to move through with the units that can blitz. So before, what happened was we would take our tanks, because tanks can blitz. Now what do we got here? We've got 8 tanks. I'm just going to put them up here also in this impassable zone, even though you can't really play up here, right? So I know I can bring those up. Now in the past we had the tanks and the mechs, right? So there's 4 mechs, mechanized infantry, and 8 tanks, and so you needed to pair 1 mechanized infantry with 1 tank. But it's going to be slightly different now. And then the other thing you could do was you could move in your planes as long as you could land them. So I could go here, and then if I blitzed over to here, then as long as I could land that plane, because that's gone 2 now, I could go 3, 4 and land him in a legal landing zone. So that meant that my fighter could do the blitz. So let's put him in there. And then we have tactical bomber. So he could go 1, 2, and then if he wanted, he could blitz into here 3 and then land here. That's 4, right? Because I own this territory before the turn began, and so that would be a legal landing space as well. So I know he can blitz. Now that was the old way of blitzing, and all these other units here, they would just move in. There's a couple of new kind of units in here, some self-propelled artillery and tank destroyers. Before though, we couldn't blitz with motorized infantry, and we still can't. We couldn't blitz with the artillery because they only went 1 space. We couldn't blitz with the infantry, of course, because they only moved 1 space as well. And cavalry. Cavalry doesn't blitz. But now that we've got these other 2 units here, the tank destroyers and the self-propelled artillery, those are going to be allowed to blitz. So I'll just move them up here. They're in there. So we've got 4 of these, 2, and 4 mechanized infantry and 8 tanks. So if we were to take all of these guys out in the first 2 turns here, then these, and these could blitz. But there's a little bit more here that we've got. Let's just take a look here. So we're at an air base up here. So 1, 2, 3. And then we could go 4 and then 5 because he's at an air base, right? So let's take him in there as well. Now this guy here, this is a medium bomber. So we're going to go up 1, 2, and medium bombers cannot blitz. They're not like tactical, and they're not like the tactical bombers or the fighters. Only fighters and tactical bombers are allowed to blitz, not your medium bombers or your strategic bombers, okay? So, but they can participate in this fight here, certainly. So you might as well come in here, and that'll help try to get these guys out on the first 2 rounds of combat. Now, in the new rule book, aside from the tank destroyers and the self-propelled artillery being able to pair with tanks. Another thing that it says in the rules, in the combat section, is that you needed to pair your planes with the tanks. So your fighters and your tactical bombers needed to pair with the tanks. So if that was the case, we would have to take 3 less things with the tanks, assuming all the tanks survived, and that would be just about the last thing we take off in this battle, right? So they would, but like we wouldn't be able to take all the mechs or self-propelled artillery or tank destroyers. We would have to lose 3 of those. Now that's what it says in the combat section of the rulebook, but in the unit profiles, where it tells you this is what infantry is, this is what militia is, this is what fighters are, that one still says that these guys don't have to pair with tanks. It could be though that those were just cut and pasted, into the unit profiles in the other one. So I'm not sure which it's going to be. I tried to get a hold of Will this weekend and I couldn't get a hold of him to ask him that question. I had a couple of questions for him, but I wasn't able to ask him that. So I'm not sure right now if you're going to need to pair your planes with your tanks, or if it's like before where you could just blitz. But I do know that these things are new that can blitz, the self-propelled artillery and the tank destroyers. So let's, I'm not going to bother rolling all this. What we'll do is we'll say that they were able to take these out in the first 2 turns. So we'll just take all of this stuff off. It was a furious battle, but we took them out. And then we lost all our infantry. We wanted to lose the cavalry. Let's just lose everything that can't blitz. There we go. Except for the medium bomber. Okay, so these guys were able to take that over. Let's just move this down here. And so we took that out. Now we've got 8 tanks. So they're going forward. Let's just put them up here. So we want to take the tank destroyers for sure, because they fight pretty well. We've already got 1 artillery with that, so let's take in. Let's just take in both. We'll take in both self-propelled artillery, so we can bring in 4 more things. And it depends on which rules you're reading. If the planes aren't a part of that, where they have to pair with the blitzing tanks, then you could bring everybody in, right? And that would be overkill because you've only got these 2 tanks here. But let's say you had a bunch of them, though. Let's just put all these in there. Let's say you had a bunch of them. Then you would need them all, right? So anyway, that's the new blitzing, where you're adding in the tank destroyers and the self-propelled artillery. And again, I'm not sure about the fighters and the tactical bombers. But what we have to be mindful of is that you're able to blitz. Like you have to, it's depending upon the terrain as well. And I made sure to set it up in this terrain so that we could, because these tanks here are in regular terrain. They're not up in this desert. They're in regular terrain. Chad here that we blitzed through is regular terrain. And then this territory here, Kordofan, that was regular terrain as well. Now there's a river there, but when we're deciding whether or not we can blitz or whether we're going through mountains or mountain borders or anything, what you do is you draw a line between the roundels. So let's just take these aside for a second. So what you would do is you draw a line between the roundels. Now you see we're not crossing this river, right? But like say if it was a little bit different and we were attacking here, then we would not be able to come up here, right? Let's just say this was a tank. Like you couldn't go from here and attack this and then up to here, because you would be crossing that river. Because when you take a look at crossing the roundels, right, you'd have to cross that river. And the same goes for mountains and desert and jungle, pretty much any type of terrain. Cities, you can't blitz through cities. You can't blitz into them. You can't blitz out of them. You can't blitz through them. And rivers. So just be mindful of that. But we did set this up so that you didn't have to do that. But that's something you have to check when you're trying to do the blitz. and that's with the old rules and with the new rules. So now we can assault these tanks. And again, this one here, so you see there's a river going through this territory, but the roundel is over here. And when we're drawing a straight line through those roundels, we're not crossing this river. If the roundel was over here, then we would have been crossing a river, but that's not the case. So that would be kind of weird to have the roundel right way over there anyway, right? Anyway, so now we can go ahead and assault these heavy tanks with all of these units here, right? Depending upon, like I said, the rules, if you're pairing these or not with the tanks. So that is blitzing, and that's how it's changed in this game. So I'll just set something else up and we'll come back. Okay, so we're back now. Okay, another new rule. This one's just a real quick one, then I'll move right into the next one. It's cavalry. Cavalry used to be part of the armor class, right? For version 3, and moving forward, cavalry is going to be considered infantry class, except for when it comes to transporting them. So you wouldn't classify them as an infantry when you were putting them on a transport, right? You would classify them more as the artillery or something, right? Like you couldn't put cavalry and artillery on. Like you could put a dude and an artillery. So you'd have to put an infantry and an artillery on, or just the artillery, whatever. But anyway, just for transporting, it's not considered an infantry, but it is part of the infantry class. And the other thing that is different about it, they wanted to differentiate the cavalry from the armored car, I guess, which is just an optional unit. It's not really in the game. But cavalry is the only ground unit that can move through mountains without being reduced to a movement of 1. So normally, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be a tank, could be mechanized infantry, motorized infantry, whatever. Normally, those can only go 1 space in the mountains, but your cavalry is going to be able to go 2 spaces in the mountains. Okay, so that's what's new this year with cavalry. Now, the biggest change, and something that is going to set this game apart from its predecessor, Axis and Allies, this is called screening force. This is by far the biggest change in the game, in my opinion anyway. So, now you understand what screening force is if you played this game before when it comes to amphibious assaults. What you do is you divide your ships up, and part of them will fight the boats that are in the zone, and the other part of the ships will come in and amphibiously assault the land, right? So what we're doing now is we're having a screening force out in the open ocean. And so what I've done here is I've set up all the Japanese here. All of these Japanese things are in here. And now that I'm looking at it, maybe I should have used somebody other than the Dutch to oppose them, because it's tough to see they're orange as well. But whatever. You can see these are Dutch units here, right? And so I've got an option here, or a few options. I mean, like what I want to do is get to the other side of the Dutch. But you know how you could have 1 destroyer in a territory and it stops an entire navy from moving like that, through like that. That's kind of ridiculous, right? And so that's what screening force is going to change. So what happens is it's kind of like blitzing, right? Where you divide your forces. So you say, okay, some of these ships are going to come in and fight these ships, or you could go this route or this route. You know what I mean? It depends on which way is easier to get through, or what ships you want to kill most. You know what I mean? Like here's a battle cruiser over here. Maybe you want to kill the battle cruiser, right? So you could go through this territory. Let's do that. It's more space over here anyway. So let's move this thing down here so we've got room. So what you would do, you're going to move. You're going to move some ships in there. So let's move in a destroyer and a cruiser. Let's move in a battle cruiser. Let's take in this as well, and that should be enough, right? Like these guys are more than enough to take out this battle cruiser, right? And so what you're saying is you're telling your opponent, now if I can take this out, I've divided my forces here. If I can take this out, then these guys are going to go through and they're going to assault these boats here. Now I want to read to you what it says here. Again, I wasn't able to get a hold of Will, which is kind of a drag because I would have liked to have asked him this question. But it says here, the screening force engages in combat with any enemy units present during combat phase. If the screening force wins, the moving force immediately moves in to the next sea zone, where it may conduct a second regular naval combat or an amphibious invasion, but not both. And then it says to move into another sea zone, each ship must have remaining movement points and expends them in doing so. So what to me is a bit unclear is, okay, so I know I can go through here and then I can kill these boats, but is that part of an amphibious assault, or do I have to have these guys not in there and so take these boats out with these things and then come in here and do an amphibious assault on this territory? Right now I'm going to say that you can't do it because it said you can do a regular naval or an amphibious assault. So let's just put these guys down here, okay? So what's going to happen is these guys are going to fight this, and it doesn't say anything in the rules there about having to do it in a certain number of turns like it does with blitzing. Blitzing on the land, you have to do it within 2 turns, right? But this one does not seem to have any restrictions in how many rounds of combat you need to do. So let's take out this battle cruiser. Let's say you lost this. Now these guys are all going to come down here into this sea zone. I probably wouldn't bring them all down. Like I probably would have assaulted these guys too, but you know, we're just not going to worry about that. So all of these things are coming down here, and we're going to do an amphibious assault. So I got 2 Marines, and I got 2 elite Marines, and then I've got 2 artillery, which of course have to stay on the land, or on the boats until the second round of combat, right? So I've got those, and then let me see, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, the planes could have come in here as well. So that's the planes in here, and this plane as well. And then they expend their 4th movement point going back to the carriers here. So there you go. That's screening force. You divide your naval forces into 2 in any way you want, and then the first one goes and fights whatever you need to go through. That pesky destroyer that people like to put up. You know, you take that destroyer out of the way and you just keep going, right? Or whatever kind of unit it is. Now, if there were more units, like let's say they had a bunch of these things in here, right? We'll just put all of this stuff in here. And you accidentally didn't take enough. You fought them as much as you could, but you either forced to retreat or you lost all your units. Well, that means that these guys would have to stay over here. They would not be able to move into this sea zone up here. So these guys lost this battle, so you can't move through there. You would have had to have taken out all the boats that were opposing you, right? And so if you do decide to retreat, then what you need to do is you need to retreat to where at least one of the boats came from. Because they all came to this sea zone, then all of your boats, if you're retreating, let's say you only had this left, you would have had to have retreated to this zone. But like if you even had one boat that came from over here where the Carolines are, you could have retreated your boats into there instead. So it has to be for where one of them came from, okay? Anyway, so that's screening force, and that is something that is really cool. But it's going to change the game a lot. Like you're going to have to watch, right? Especially your capital. Like, you know, the Japanese think they, you know, like you can just go one space out and defend your capital from out here with one destroyer each. That's just not the case, right? Because the Americans come in, take that destroyer out, and then they're assaulting the land. Again, I'm going to need some more clarification. Does the amphibious assault include boats that are in here, or is it like it says in the thing there, if there's more boats you can't do that and the amphibious assault? Because an amphibious assault, of course, in this game includes the screening force that is in here. So I'm going to need some clarification on that. But this is pretty cool, isn't it? That you can do that. Anyway, so I'll set something else up and we'll go on to the next rule. Okay, this next rule is called the Himalayan air hump, and this one I didn't need any. It's pretty short and sweet, so I don't need any confirmation on that. So here's the Himalayas, right? Now those are impassable, except the Burma Road here. When the Burma Road is open, then you can get from Burma over to Yunnan, right? Right there. That's the Burma Road. Well, yeah, anyway, that's the Burma Road. So that's the only way normally to get through those mountains, or you have to go around them right there, or through the north, right? But in this, in version 3, you're going to be able to fly over the Himalayas, but there's going to be at a cost, right? So, or could be at a cost. So you can fly over there, but if you're going over, you have to roll the dice, or roll a die, a 12-sided die. Oh, here. Let's roll that out there. 8, so you're okay. If you roll an 11 or a 12, your plane dies. It was going over the mountains and it was never seen again. So you can fly over the Himalayas now, but you have to roll the die first and make sure you don't get 11 or 12. And also aircraft, like let's say the United States is going to lend lease aircraft to China, but they're using the Burma Road. Even though you're going up the Burma Road, the aircraft is supposedly in the air. So again, you're going to have to roll the die. 8, there you go. That plane can get through. Because apparently you're flying it through the Burma Road there. So again, can't roll 11 or 12 when you're leasing aircraft down the Burma Road. And flying over the Burma Road, of course, you can do that as long as you don't hit an 11 or 12. And that's anybody, like flying either direction. Japanese can fly over if they want, but again, they're going to have to roll the die first. So that's the Himalayan air hump. Okay, so it's contest time. I decided to put the contest somewhere near the middle of the video because I got a comment on the video last week. When I was giving away a prize, the guy said, could you just leave a comment in the description box that there's a contest, so basically so he wouldn't have to watch the video, he'd just have to comment. I didn't even know how to respond. I had to sit there and think about it for a while, like, seriously? Anyway, so I'm not even going to put this video at the end of my thing because it occurs to me that anybody could just skip right to the end of my video and look for the contest, right, and then enter it. So I'm not going to say anything at the end of this video. I'm just going to say something now, and I'm going to tell you how to enter this contest. So what we're going to do here, and this is the prize right here. This is the set of partisans that I didn't give away last week. Stephen Hare, I believe his name was, just sent his stuff away. Actually, I sent away both prizes today that we had last weekend. I finally made it to the post office today. But anyway, he chose the Turkey at War set. So this is the partisan set. Pretty expensive set, and it's a good set and everything. It's here. Let me just show you something there. Yeah, I really like this set, but if I was in a hurry, I wouldn't play with the partisans because the partisans are definitely going to slow you down because you're just about every territory you're rolling for. So what I did was from the instructions here, let me just show you. I'll get back a bit. From the instructions, I took one page and I laminated it because these 2 pages here are basically all you need to know. The rest of the pages are they're just explaining all this stuff. But once you've read the rules, then these are just the only ones you need for reference, right? These are the numbers is on these 2 pages, and so that's page 6 and 7. So what I did was I just went to the store and I got them to print off this and laminate it for me. So that helps because I remember the first time we played it, we kept flipping through the instructions. Anyway, so how do you win that? Okay, Doug was contacting me this week, Doug, friend from historicalboardgaming.com, and he asked me, what do you think of smaller chips? Didn't know what he was talking about at first. Well, McDonald's are pretty small, but no, what he wanted to know was smaller chips, like the ones that you get in the 1914 game, the Axis and Allies 1914 game. Here, let me just show you what I mean. So, here, let's see if we can see this a little better. Like these chips are quite a bit smaller, right? And they don't lock or anything. Like you wouldn't want to use both chips. But anyway, he kind of thought maybe historical board gaming should make their own chips. So it's like that all the way around, right? Because when you have so many territories in a game, and especially the city territories, like you look at these cities here, and some of them are pretty darn small, right? And so it's hard to fit all of your units in there. But all you really need, all you really need is the space in the center here. Like that's where your dude fits in, right? Like here you got the round thing on the bottom. This is the same size as all the other ones, right? So the dudes fit in there just perfectly, right? But they also fit into these smaller chips just perfectly. It's just less territory around the outside of them, right? So I wanted to show you here what I did. Now these, I measured these two cities and they're both exactly the same size. That's Paris and Madrid, right? So in this territory with the Axis and Allies chips, I was able to get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chips. And in Madrid there, with the 1914 chips, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 chips. So so one extra chip, and plus you can see there's a little bit of extra room in there too, right? Just like for putting them in there. So really you're room for about 2 more chips if you were to split one up. But just remember, like not everything's going to be on a chip, right? Like if you got your flight stands, and like you could fit planes in there, right? In this one here, you couldn't fit anything else. There's basically no room in there. So anyway, that's just an idea. And he would like to know, like he wanted to ask me if I knew, and I said, it's not a bad idea. I said, I'm not sure that what kind of response you'd get, because I mean everybody already has chips, right? Like we've already got our Axis and Allies chips and everything, and yeah, like smaller chips would be handy. But what I want to know from you is, and you're going to need to leave a comment to win the partisans, is how much is, not how much, but is this worth something to you? In other words, this is not just a good idea, but is this something that you think you might actually invest in, right? Chips aren't that expensive for one thing, and but a smaller chip would certainly be something that would be helpful. But that doesn't mean you're going to spend money on it, right? The other thing is that I'd like to know is if you played 1914 before, you know that there was 2 red chips and 2 blue chips. So each side had their own color, right? Like the dark blue chip would be 5 and the light blue chip would be 1. So another thing that he could do when he was making up a set of chips, he could do that, right? With 2 different colors. Or 3 different colors, like your Axis, your Allies, your Comintern. They could all have their own colors, different shades of blue or red or whatever, right? Is that something that would interest you? Or do you just need, like you do here, where you've got either gray or white chips for 1, and then red ones for 5 and green ones for 3? Because, I mean, you don't have to get fancy like this. You could just go this route, but with smaller chips, you know what I mean? Use white ones or gray ones, and then red ones and green ones. Or, like I said, you could get a little bit fancier and do it like that. So, I want you to leave a comment and let me know, and don't talk about it. All those people that aren't going to watch the video just looking for a contest, don't say anything about it. Just say, this is what I think of chips. And then tell me, right? Say, you know what, I don't like the idea of new chips, I'm going to stick with my own. Or hey, it's a pretty good idea, but I don't think I'd buy them, or whatever, right? Just tell me what you think. So that's how you're going to win the partisan set if you decide to enter the contest. The Monroe Doctrine. Now, the Monroe Doctrine, it's an American thing. So the North and South America, like the Americas basically, all of that, the Western Hemisphere, there's that, and then on the other side over here, there's this. So now, the way the Monroe Doctrine is working now, and has been up to this point, was that if you attacked anything whatsoever in those land zones that I showed you, like North, Central, or South America, if you attacked any of them, then America goes to war. They consider that an act of war against America, and they enter the war regardless of what their income level is at the time. So that's not changing. If you attack somebody in North, Central, or South America, again, America's going to be pissed off and they're coming after you. But what is changing is that they're going to get a little stickier now. If you have naval transports with more than 2 dudes or more than 2 units on them within 2 sea zones of the United States, and that's anywhere. We're talking about the U.S. home country, okay? So that's that there, and that's the western states that you've seen on the other side. If you come within 2 sea zones of them, and that includes Hawaii, because that's only 2 sea zones away, then boom, America considers that an act of war, and they go straight to full economy, and they're at war. They will declare war on you because they consider what you just did an act of war against them. And the third thing is any surface warship. We're not talking about submarines or transports here, like an empty transport. We're talking about surface warships. If you have any surface warship in a sea zone adjacent to the United States home country, boom, that's an act of war. The United States is coming after you. So that could be here, 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 or let's go to the other side over here, or here, or here. We are at war, buddy. Now remember also the right here, like 2 sea zones away, right? Any 2 sea zones away from the American home country with transports that have more than 2 ground units on them. So if the Japanese came across and sat in Hawaii here like a smart ass with 3 units in it, boom, America's going to war with them. So that's how the Monroe Doctrine is changing for version 3. Okay, here's another optional rule that is changing, and that's the variable ending. If you remember, there was a variable ending that you could do starting in 1944. You'd roll a 6-sided dice, right? And you'd see, so where are we here? 1944. Or no, July of 1944. So you'd roll the dice, and I think if you got a 1 or whatever, I can't remember. I don't have the old rules in front of me. But then the war would end at the end of this turn, right? And then there was a different dice roll in January of 45, and a different dice roll in July of 45, and a different dice roll in January of 46. They were all with 6-sided dice, and they were all like, so you didn't know exactly when the war was going to end. But I mean, it wasn't going to go on that long, like, because you were using a 6-sided dice, and it was pretty easy to get where you needed to go, right? To end the war. So what is changing here now is you're going to use 12-sided dice. And to end the war in July of 1944, you need to hit a 1. So that's pretty tough to do, right, with a 12-sided die. January 1945, so ending the war 6 months early, you'd have to get a 1 or a 2. Ending the war on time at July of 1945, you needed a 1 to 3. So again, that's not very easy to hit, right? And then January of 1946, so 6 months late, you needed to get a 1 to 5. So that's almost even odds, right? Again, I missed, right? And then after that, anytime, like, you can keep going until now it's 1 to 6. So now it's a 50-50 chance. So there, the war ended right here in July of 1946 if you were going by the rolls. Now that's the American players after they're done their turn, and that's when the thing ends, right? Like the round ends. Then the American player takes the dice, last thing they do, and roll it. Okay, is the game over? Nope, we got to keep going. And then next round they roll the dice again. Is the game over? Nope, got to keep going. So anyway, this is going to make it a little more interesting. I've never played the variable ending roll, but I think I'm going to try it next time, as long as I have enough time, right? You know, like, it just depends, like, you get people together and everything, and if people are from out of town, then you kind of need to end that game, right? So that's pretty interesting. I think I'm going to try that, and like I said, it's going to be more difficult to hit that number. Now there is a modifier in there. You add +1 for every major power capital that is enemy owned. So like if Paris is out of the game, then you would need to hit a 2 instead of a 1 in July of 44. And then in January of 45, you would need to hit a 1 to 3. In July, a 1 to 4. And that's just if there's only one capital. If there's another capital, then you up the dice. And that's kind of cool because like if there's a bunch of capitals fallen, then it's just about time for the war to end, right? So like if there's 3 capitals that have fallen, then it's going to be pretty easy to hit your dice roll. You get to July or January of 1946, and you need to roll a 1 to 8. If there was 3 capitals that were down. So anyway, that's variable ending. Okay, another thing that we when we were playtesting, we I can't remember exactly how it came about, but it's like we accidentally stumbled into it. Somebody said, "Hey, why don't we just do this instead?" I think we were actually might have been playing the 1914 game when we talked about it, but what it has to do with neutral nations and how they're controlled. So the control itself doesn't change. Like let's say you're not playing with the Turkey at war rules, but Germany comes down here and they take out Istanbul, right? So now Germany has Istanbul, and Germany and Britain are they're not at war right now. So that means that the British player would control these 2 territories, right? Now the way it says to do it in the instructions or the rule book is that the British player would control the units that are left, right? They would control these units, and they would control the money. So if this lasted for 3-4 turns, which is unlikely, then the Americans would be collecting money for the Turks here and putting it aside, and that would be true also with any other nation that has more than one territory, right? Like we could be talking about Finland or Norway or Sweden. Any nation or any minor power that has more than one territory. Could be Brazil, right? Although that triggers a whole different set of things. But anyway, that's the way you did it before, was you collected that dollar, you know what I mean? And that was kind of cumbersome, because that could happen 2 or 3 times a game. So what we talked about, and what I think will probably be in the new rules, because it's already in the rules for other things, and so it would be pretty easy to remember. You're going to do the same as what you do with Spain and with the CCP. Like there's 2 territories that the British are controlling here. So you're going to roll the die. You're going to try to hit a 1 or a 2. That was a 6. But if you hit a 1 or a 2, then you get either an infantry or 2 militia to put on, right? It's just the recruitment role that you're used to doing with the Republicans and the nationalists in Spain and with the CCP. So that's what you'll do for the other territories. If you only have 1 territory, then you've got to roll a 1. If you've got 2 territories, then you'd have to roll a 1 or a 2. And that instead of collecting all this money, you know what I mean, where you got $1 and another $1 and another $1, and it's not going to do you any damn good, right? You're never ever going to get to spend it. So there you go. That is one that I think will probably be in, because I think it's a really good one, and we came up with that, and I know Will wrote it down, and we all thought it was a great idea. So we'll see if that makes it into the rule book. When we were playtesting down in Tulsa, we didn't get to the end of the game, of course, because like there just wasn't enough time. We only had 1 day to do this game. We were working on 4 games. So we didn't get to the end where you get to the victory conditions, right? And see who won the game. But I have been reading them since I've gotten home. And one of the things that I see in the victory conditions that is a change, and I'm going to go through them and look some more, because I was looking, after I did notice that one, I was looking for more. We don't have the player cards, like the reference cards, where it's got each nation on it and it tells you more about that nation, because a lot of the information for the game is on those reference cards, and they're not information that's not in the rule books, right? But that one thing is in the rule book. So you're scoring your victory objectives. And one of the changes that I see is there was a thing where Anzac would get a point if they had all their own territory and there was no enemy ships in the Dutch or in the Netherlands East Indies here. See, like this, they would not get that point. So now what that's changed to, kind of a hassle with this map here because it's a cloth map. I can't wait to get the final product. But anyway, what's changed is that now the wording has changed on that. And I would bet that the wording has changed on whether or not you get your bonus money, if they've changed it for this, because it's basically the same as the bonus money, right? What you needed to do. So if here, there are no enemy warships within 2 sea zones of Australia. So that's changed from whether or not there's anybody in the Netherlands East Indies, right? Because over here, that would cancel your bonus. But now that doesn't cancel your bonus because you look and here's Australia. So 1, 2, right? There's just no way of getting over there. Same with this territory here. 1, 2, 1, 2. So these 2 territories here would not cancel your victory point at the end, and I would guess probably your bonus as well, although I don't have the reference card. But all of these other territories here, that is within 2 zones, so that would cancel the bonus for the Australians and cancel the victory objective. So that's one minor change in the rule that I've noticed, and I'm going to have to look a little closer, see if there's anything else like that in there that we weren't able to get to, because it was the end of the game. And like that's some of the things like we don't know if they're changing because we didn't have reference cards. The ones that they printed some off for us, but they didn't seem to be completely updated though. In some cases, they were just copied and pasted, and that wasn't the right rule. Like we come across something, you say, "Oh, that's not it." You write this down there. So, but we left it with we left all those sheets with them because they wanted our sheets that had the writing on them. So I can't get into all the rules with that. So anyway, that's a different one there. One of the things that have most definitely changed for version 3 are the convoy rating rules. The way they were before, that was too easy to kill the submarines that were trying to convoy, because the escorts got a free shot at them basically, right? And it didn't matter where you were on the line. It was kind of it was just way too easy. Let's just put it that way. So they changed them, and we play tested them, but there was a lot of discussion over whether or not that should be the way it goes. So I don't want to get into the convoy rating rules because I'm not sure how they're going to be written. Plus we didn't for whatever reason we didn't use seaplanes, so that would have made a big difference in convoy rating. I had felt that the UK was at a very big disadvantage because they're the ones that get convoyed most. The Commonwealth countries, they get convoyed the most in the game, and so if you change the rules to in big time in favor of the subs, then you're penalizing one nation more than all of the other ones. But I think that with seaplanes though, that might balance that out quite a bit if a British player got good at using seaplanes and use them in concert with all the other methods that you can to stop convoy rating, then that would probably balance it out. So I don't know exactly how it's going to balance or how it's going to be in the end. What I do know is that probably what's going to happen is something to do with combat air patrol and carriers. We talked about this and see now before. I think what you could do, like we've got a sub here and we've got a sub here. One's 1 space away and one's 2 spaces away from a carrier. Now, carrier-based aircraft They're like having a plane on combat air patrol. Like they're on patrol, even though they're on the carrier here. And you don't need a marker to show that they're on patrol here. But that's the same with any territory around them. They're on combat air patrol. So you could take these out here, or take that. Well, just take this out here. You could attack that plane or attack that sub right there, because you're on combat air patrol. Now before, what you could do, I believe what you could do, I was a little confused about the sub rules, so I'm glad that we clarified them. Before, what you could do is you could come down here, and then now your planes are on combat air patrol, and you could attack that sub, right? And that would be a way to take the subs out, right? But I don't think you're not going to be able to do that now, because you only have a combat air patrol range of 1. And that includes moving your carrier. So you can't, if you go here, that's 1. Like your combat patrol range is 1 already. So you've come here, that's 0 now. So you don't have another movement space to bring your plane out there. In other words, your carriers have to be next to a sub in order to take them out. If you're 2 spaces away from a sub, there's no way you're going to be able to do that. You just can't do it. Like you could bring your carrier down there, but the sub, he said, I'm gonna submerge, because those planes are not on combat air patrol anymore. They're just in regular combat, and so the sub just submerges. So you have to be adjacent to, or in the same sea zone, or adjacent to a carrier-based aircraft in order for those carrier-based aircraft to be considered on combat air patrol. So, and then moving that forward, that'll be part of the convoying rules, right? I don't want to get into those right now, though. I'm interested, as everybody is, to see exactly how those are going to work out. I think I know, but I don't want to say, because I don't know for sure, right? I don't want to give you the wrong information. Even though I've given you some speculation in these other rules, I know that rule is a pretty contentious one among all players of the game, especially since the way it was so unbalanced before with the convoy rating, like with the current rules, where you basically don't really have much of a chance for convoy rating. Like you can raid the convoy, but then you're going to lose the sub, right? So it was just not a good idea. You might get 2 raids in before that sub dies, but that sub was going to die, and so it was pretty contentious, and that's why I don't want to get into it. But anyway, that's the way combat air patrol is going to work with planes with carrier-based aircraft. I'm going to check here. I don't think I've got too many more to show you. I'll check and see if I can find another one. If not, then we'll just come back and end the video. Okay, so I didn't come across anything else that I wanted to share this time. A lot of the new rules have to do with the bases and things like that. And we touched on the bases last weekend, the ports, different types of ports, the naval ports and the shipyards and the dockyards and things like that. So that is a big part of the new rules, as well as the convoying. There'll be convoying with planes and with surface ships as well. So that's something that'll probably be its own video when I have confirmation of what it's going to be like, what the rules are going to be. One of the things that we did touch on was Vichy France. We kind of thought that maybe it would have been a good idea, and so we don't know, because there's nothing written down. We'll see when Will decides to reveal the new and improved rule book. Is that why shouldn't France be able to attack Vichy France? Like as it is now in the rules, if France, it would be like anybody else attacking a Vichy France territory. Then all the Vichy France territories would become German territories, right? So, but why shouldn't a Free France nation be able to attack just say one territory. You know what I mean? Like let's say this was a free French territory and this was Vichy France. Why shouldn't these guys be able to attack these guys? They're both French, right? It shouldn't make every other Vichy territory all of a sudden become German. You would think anyway. Like, what are the other Vichy French territories thinking, right? So anyway, we'll see. We'll see. I think that would be a cool rule change, that France could start taking back their own territories, right? But I don't know. I haven't really given it too much thought either. You know, what would Germany do about that? You know what I mean? Could they take them back? I don't know. I haven't thought about it, right? So anyway, that's just one of those things that we threw out there, and there was a lot of things that we threw out there. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that new rule book and playing the new rules, because I love this game, but I was under the impression that some of the rules needed to change, and I think that most of us were. So definitely the map's going to be improved. One of the things that was just talked about recently was another convoy line. Instead of the Italians being on this convoy line, which doesn't make much sense, you know, the Mediterranean line, maybe the convoy line would go from Rome down to this territory down here, which probably won't be called Tripoli in the end, because that's the name of a city. But anyway, that would be its own convoy line, an Italian convoy line. So we'll see. Maybe that'll happen. And maybe the Russian line up there that's not worth anything, maybe that'll all of a sudden be worth something. You know, that'll get some fighting going up there between the Germans and the Russian boats, right? Anyway, that's all I got for you today. I'm not sure what my next video is going to be. I've been really busy this weekend, actually. That's why the video is not coming out until Sunday night. I've been painting my pieces for 1914, because if you have the Axis and Allies 1914 game, that's not good enough, you know, for the Global War 1914 game, because there's a lot more pieces, and so I'm trying to build up my pieces, different types of pieces that you need and everything, and trying to get them all the same color. I've been painting them and everything, to try to be able to play that game, because it looks like it's going to be a really good game. It's a ways off. It's not as close to being finished as this game is, but yeah, it would be fun to put that map on the table. I do have that map, and to test that one out, and to try to maybe I can come up with a couple of ideas to send to the boys down south. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. So take care, everyone. General Hand Grenade out.